All right, we are live. Welcome. I'm ESL teacher Lisa. I'm currently in the Philippines. Right now it's 7:52 a.m. Sunday morning. So you might be behind me. Maybe it is Saturday evening where you are, but welcome. So the purpose of today's live is really to address 10 areas where students have questions, concerns, need advice. I'm going to address some of the things that you say, so some common questions will be answered. And I'll also address some pain points, so some struggles or challenges in learning the English language. So if you're watching this live, feel free to ask me a question in the chat. If you're looking at the replay, you can also leave a question in the comments. So let's get started. The first one, lack of conversational practice. So some of you have said things like this. I'm just going to address my notes here. I don't, so let's start again. I have trouble speaking with native speakers. I feel nervous when trying to talk in English. I don't get enough practice in real conversations. So does this sound like you? What can you do about it? So first, I'm going to give you a tip for each one and then some advice. I'll try to leave some links in the description once this is posted as a replay, some of the things that I might mention in the video. So here's the first tip. Immerse yourself in English speaking environments. Join online language exchange groups or language learning apps that offer speaking practice. So if you're in a country where you don't have native speakers to talk to, where there aren't places where you can talk to a tourist, then you'll have to go online. So there's a lot of companies that offer different plans where you can talk to native speakers. LINGODA is one that I really like. Cambly is another one. If you're looking to take advantage of apps, Pimsleur is an excellent one. So there's so many different apps and English language companies out there. Just find one that fits your budget and that you're comfortable with. So here's the advice. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every conversation is a learning journey. Practice speaking aloud, even if you're alone. So I'll give you an example of that. Practicing alone can actually be very beneficial. You can just use the language. The key to becoming a more fluent speaker is speak more. There's no substitute. You just have to use the language more. So if you're alone, maybe the question is, where would you like to go on vacation? What country would you like to visit? So if you're alone, you can just practice and say the words out loud. Try to put your thoughts and sentences together. So you could say something like this. I would love to go to Thailand. I've never been to Asia before. I think I'm going to ask my husband or my wife to come with me. I would love to spend 2 weeks there. I'm going to try new foods. I'm not open to trying new foods, but I really would love to start trying new foods. Something simple like that. Just talk to yourself, but do it out loud is a good way to practice the language. If you've joined the live chat, you can tell me in the chat where you're from. You can say a quick hello. That's fine too. I'll take a look at the live chat. Okay, number 2. This is the next pain point. Understanding idioms and phrasal verbs. So some of you had said, idioms confuse me. I don't understand when people use phrasal verbs. I feel lost with colloquial expressions. Excuse me. So colloquial expressions or collocations is how a native prefers to put their words together. So let's address idioms. You have to know in American English speaking, not written English, it's more in American English speaking. We use a lot of idioms, so there's no way around that. You have to learn idioms. We also use phrasal verbs. So remember phrasal verbs. Hey Maria, how are you? Maria's joined the chat. Nice to have you. And you're in Mexico, right, Maria? So Phrasal verbs, you take a verb plus another little verb, a preposition, or an adverb, another little word that creates a new meaning. Idioms are just an expression. I often like to use the one, it's raining cats and dogs. So in that case, is it really raining cats and dogs from the sky? No, it means it's raining heavy. There was another expression I recently used with a student. It was easy on. So if you're at a restaurant and you order French fries, for example, and they want to put ketchup on it, you might say easy on the ketchup. It means just a little. Or maybe you order a salad, easy on the Italian dressing. So easy on means just a little. So the student asked me, well, why don't people just say a little? Because that's what it means. Why don't they just say a little? Isn't it easier? So this is my answer. In spoken English, the idiom is just as comfortable. We're just as comfortable using the idiom than saying it another way. We can say it either way. So you have to get comfortable using either one. It's very natural for native English speakers to use idioms and phrasal verbs, even though, yes, there is a different way to say it more directly, and that can be clearer to a non-native speaker, but that's just how we speak American spoken English. So you just have to get comfortable with that. Yeah, Maria. Okay, great. You're in Mexico. I just want to make sure you're the Maria that I know. You joined many of my classes. Good to have you here. And Maria, I know you're a very good speaker, actually. So if you have any suggestions that worked for you, we'll be happy to hear them. So easy on me, like Adele's song. Yes, that's right. Adele has a song. Yeah, go easy on me. Okay, uh, let's just look at the tip for understanding idioms and phrasal verbs. So keep an idiom and phrasal verb journal. So you should all have a notebook where you're putting these new expressions. If you don't have a notebook, you need to start today. You need to keep track of meanings and words. That's how you improve. You can also, here's some advice, watch English movies and TV shows with subtitles. And this one is very important. Pay attention to how native speakers use these expressions. So you have to be listening to the language. Okay, let's go on to number 3. Fear of making mistakes. Oh boy, this is a big one. I'm going to talk about some culture here. Some of you have said this. I am afraid of making mistakes when I speak. What if I say something wrong? I don't want to embarrass myself. So the truth is you're going to make mistakes. This is very difficult in some cultures where you're made fun of for speaking English. I had a student recently from Turkey, and she said in the Turkish culture, they will actually make fun of you when you try to speak English. The same is true here. I'm currently in the Philippines, as some of you know, and I see that all the time. A person will try to speak English and their friends and family are laughing at them. Like they think it's so hysterical. And I'm sitting there talking to the person and I don't understand why are they laughing? There's nothing funny about what we're saying. So you have to really get over that. I know it's easier said than done, but you have to push forward despite the ridicule and speak English, even though you know you might be made fun of. But guess what? If you keep trying to improve and speak, you're going to leave them in the dust. What I mean is you're going to improve your English and they won't. And eventually they're going to ask you, wow, your English is so good. How did you learn? Yeah, because you're not afraid to make mistakes. And I know it's easier said than done, but don't worry about people laughing at you. So it's very, very difficult because it's deeply ingrained in many cultures, especially the Asian culture, where you're afraid to speak in front of your friends and family. Maria, let me know in the Mexican culture, is that true also? Like when you try to speak English, or no? Is that not the case? Do you not get made fun of? Okay, so here's a quick tip and advice. Tip, remember that everyone makes mistakes, even native speakers. I can't emphasize that enough. Native speakers make mistakes all the time. We're very loose with our grammar when we speak. When we write, it's different. We pay more attention. So please don't worry so much about mistakes. Your goal should be to be able to communicate clearly to get your idea across. That's the goal. Focus on communicating the message, not perfection. Some more advice, join a supportive supportive language learning community where you can practice speaking without judgment. So get a private tutor, join a group online class where nobody's going to make fun of you and nobody's there to judge you because you're all learning. So if you can't do that practice in person, then go online and just join a group where everybody's trying to do the same thing. So Maria said she'll recommend me, I guess me, right? Creating a podcast, choose a topic you want to talk about and record yourself. Oh, okay. For students to create a podcast. Yeah, okay. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. Okay. Number 4, limited vocabulary. Limited vocabulary. So what have some of you said regarding this? I struggle to find the right words. I want to learn more vocabulary, but don't know how. I feel stuck and can't express my thoughts fully. Yeah, you have to build vocabulary, but students often do this wrong. They start to learn words that aren't as critical or as important for their English language life. Everybody has a personal English language life. So why are you learning English? What's important to you? If it's because you want a better job, then you need to learn vocabulary about job searching, maybe more business English, job interviews. If you're somebody who's a nurse, then you need to improve your English regarding health vocabulary or working in a hospital or talking to a patient. If you're a teacher, then you need to practice words related to education or speaking to a student or a parent. So don't waste time learning words that really don't have an impact in your English language life. You can learn words later, but first focus on the ones that will help you to have a conversation or help you in the situations that you find yourself in day to day. Here's the tip. Use flashcards or vocabulary apps to learn new words regularly. Try to use new words in sentences to reinforce learning. So that's pretty basic, but they work. Flashcards work. I tell students, get an index card, get a pack of index cards, and put the word you're trying to learn, or if it's about pronunciation, put it on the index card, and then try to say it each day. If you can say it correctly, of course, you need somebody who's going to correct you on this. You can give yourself a little check, and once you can say it correctly like 3 times, then you can retire the card and go to the next one. Or if you're learning the definition, just try that, look at that card each day. If you get it correct 3 times in a row or for 3 settings, then you can retire that card. Excuse me. So vocabulary cards work really well, even though it's been around for a long time. But now they have apps that help you to do that. Whatever works for you is fine. Here's the advice. Read English books. Oh my goodness, students don't read enough. Please read more. Read English books, articles, and newspapers to expand your vocabulary. Pay attention to how words are used in context. So I'm going to address intermediate learners. My channel is more for intermediate learners. You need to be reading something every day in English. If you've been in my classes before, like Maria, you know that I tell you, you need to read every day. Find something to read out loud, not quietly, because if you read quietly, you're not saying the word or hearing the word. You're only seeing the word. So when you read out loud, it keeps training the mouth, lips, tongues, and throat for a better English sound. And choose something that you enjoy. With grammar, you know enough grammar to speak if you're at an intermediate level, but you learn grammar in context. So you look at the sentence structure when you read. That is more helpful than just trying these endless grammar lessons. You can purchase a grammar book, nothing wrong with doing grammar exercises, but you shouldn't be doing a lot of that at an intermediate level. You need to start looking at how the words are used in context and sentence structure and everyday phrases. Okay. Maria does remember. Good. I'm glad you didn't forget. That's good. Let's go to the next one. Cultural understanding. So what have some of you said here? Just checking my notes. Some of you might have said, I don't understand the cultural context behind conversations. I'll explain that one in a bit. How do I know what's appropriate to say? I want to fit in, but I don't know how. So language learning is just as much about culture as it is about words. So if I was going to learn Spanish, at one point I was learning Spanish, I didn't stick to it long term, but I learned some basic things. And I was going to, I'll use Mexico as an example since Maria is here, and I'm going to move to Mexico. Do you think I just need to learn Spanish words and greetings and phrases? Do you think I need to ignore the culture or the food? I have to learn about the culture if I'm going to connect with the people and fit in. You can't ignore the culture. So we're talking about English, and I focus on American English, not British English or English from another country. You have to understand why Americans think the way they do, why they do the things they do. You have to understand the culture to understand some of the expressions and understand some of the jokes. So if you're in a room and somebody's speaking English and everybody's laughing but you, it's possible you missed a cultural reference or maybe an idiom or an expression. So you have to learn about the culture. And watching TV shows can certainly help you with this. Okay, so let's look at some of the advice. You can watch English language TV shows and movies to learn about different cultures. Read about different cultural differences and customs. Here's the advice, interact with native speakers to gain insights into their culture and values. Ask questions and show genuine interest. Ask questions. Be interested. Often I reference native speakers. Is it necessary to have a teacher or tutor that's a native English speaker? No. No, you can certainly still learn the language without being in contact with a native speaker, but it is helpful when it comes to culture because they can really ask, you can really answer, or rather, you can really ask those questions and they can answer those cultural questions. Why do they do this, or why do they say it that way and not this way? What's the cultural reference? And so they can help you with jokes that maybe you heard on TV and didn't get it. So there is an advantage to interacting with a native speaker because of the cultural understanding. 6, difficulty with accents. Difficulty with accents. So what have some of you said? I can't understand different English accents. Sometimes I can't follow what people are saying. Accents make it hard for me to communicate. Okay, that's a real concern. So English accents do vary, of course, if we're talking about UK or Australia, but even within the US, there are different English accents. I speak more with a neutral accent. Although I grew up in New York, I don't have the typical New York accent that some people have in certain parts of the state, but in Texas, they have a different accent. Or in the southern part of the US, in the South, they have more of a southern accent. They have more of a drawl, they call it. I had a friend who grew up in Texas. He moved to California for work. And his first day in the office, he came back home and said to his wife, "They don't understand me, honey. They don't understand what I'm saying." They couldn't understand him. They had difficulty because of his Texan accent. He had a heavy Texan accent, even though he was speaking English. So what do you do? How do you resolve this issue? Listen to more accents. Listen to different kind of speakers. TV shows help. Podcasts help. Um, Accents, when somebody said accents make it hard for me to communicate. The brain just needs to be trained more to hearing the accent. So if I was to get somebody right now on this live and they had a Filipino accent but speaking English, you might have difficulty understanding them. Or an Indian person speaking English but with a heavy Indian accent, you might have difficulty. Why? If you're not used to hearing that accent, the brain takes a little time to pick up on the speech pattern. It's similar to like a child and their mom. The child will ask for something and it sounds like baby talk, but the mother understands because she's used to the child's, the way they say things, how they say things, their incorrect way of saying words, but the mother has heard it so often, she knows what the child wants. So it's similar with accents. You have to get used to how people speak, their speech patterns, to pick up on what they're saying. And so it's just training the ear more for that accent. I have a bit of an advantage because over the years I've spoken to students from around the world. So my ear is a bit trained. I had a friend that joined one of my English classes. She's non-native, so she wanted to join. And then after the class, when we spoke, when I asked her, how did she enjoy the class? Did she have any tips for me? This is what she said. Lisa, how did you understand all the students? I didn't understand this guy and I didn't understand this person. Why? She wasn't used to hearing the accents, but I am. So I have an easier time understanding students. But you as an English language learner, it's going to be hard for you. Please know the US has many, 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 I don't know the percentage of non-native English speakers. So don't think when you go to the US that everybody is going to be a native speaker. It's not true. So you have to get used to hearing more accents. I know Maria said you used to go to California, right? And practice your English. You, if I remember correctly, you'd go into a store to buy something small, like a pack of gum or something, just so you can practice a little bit. Um, but I'm sure when you visited California, and I know you went to, I believe, the UK, you probably saw the diversity. So just know that if you go to the US or the UK, not everybody's going to be a native English speaker. They will have accents, so you need to get used to it. Please know if you have a strong accent, you have to give the listener time. It doesn't mean you said anything wrong or your accent is so heavy they can't understand. Sometimes you have to give the listener time if they're not expecting you to have an accent or they're not used to your type of accent. So it doesn't mean you need to change anything. Sometimes it's them, the listener, that's having difficulty. Here's the advice. Practice shadowing native speakers to improve your pronunciation, listening comprehension. So play a part of a podcast or TV and pause it, and then you try to shadow or repeat that. So if you do that often enough, you start to get into more of the rhythm of how things are said. Please practice dialogue reading. Students don't do this enough. Uh, when I did classes online, I'm hoping to bring those back. I'll talk about that in the near future. Group classes again that you can join with me. So I'm working on a structure. So it should be out soon and we'll see how it goes. It'll be via Zoom and we will have a list of conversations topics that you'll have ahead of time where you can join. And so you can come with a prepared answer if you want, or you can just do it fly by night, which means extemporaneously, which means not preparing. Either way is fine, but I'll give you that information in the near future. But practice, 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 practice dialogue reading. So I used to do that in the classes a lot, where you have one person read one part, the other person read the other part. So that's a good way really to see how a native will put their words together. And it can really help you with your comprehension. Let's go on to 7, finding the right learning resources. Of course, this is a common one. What books should I use? What app should I use? Um, well, I'll tell you in a second. What have some students said? There are so many resources, but I don't know which one to choose. I need help finding ebooks focused on conversation. Not all learning materials fit my needs. That's very true. There's a ton of material out there. My short answer is find whatever works for you. I don't have a lot of resources that I recommend. The reason is because one size doesn't fit all. Um, there is one book, um, the name escapes me. I can't think of it now. American Idioms. It's American, I don't know. I can't remember. I'll try to link it in the video later. But I think it's one of the best idiom books that I've used or come across, where you have the idiom, plus it has dialogue, plus it explains each idiom. But other than that, there isn't a lot of books that I can recommend because there's so many and everybody has different needs. In terms of apps, find whatever works. So if a student says, hey, I bought this book, or I bought this grammar book or vocab book, or I'm using this app, my response is great. You're interacting with the language. If you're learning, then keep using it if it's working for you. So what works for you might not work for someone else. Yeah. But as Maria pointed out, she says, I love shadowing for pronunciation. Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful, shadowing. Getting an audio book is really helpful. I really don't like AI. I know there's a lot of AI that you can play an article and the AI is speaking. Why do you think I'm not too crazy about AI? There's some very good AI programs, but it's because it doesn't really get the real inflection and stress. You can always tell on YouTube when something is AI because it sounds stiff or robotic, or you hear a word, oh, it's not pronounced correctly. I can tell it's AI. So try to find an audio book where it's the actual person speaking is very helpful. That can really help you for shadowing. Okay, so here's the tip for finding the right learning resources. Identify your learning style and goals. So that's different for everyone. Research different resources and try a variety of approaches. So just try different things. Advice, seek recommendations from other language learners or teachers. Online reviews can also be helpful. That's very true. I try to put some resources, most of them are free, to my Gumroad store. I do have one book that's on Amazon. I'll try to incorporate that more in future videos that I've created. And so different resources I can create for you, or I'll use a resource that's connected to a video so you can follow along and have that resource. But there's so many out there. Just look through. For example, Amazon is good. I'll just use Amazon because everybody knows Amazon. When you go to the book section and you're searching for ESL resource book, maybe you're looking for a grammar book, just make sure that it's, if your level is intermediate, that you're putting that in the search. Intermediate or B1 or B2, which is the European scale to grade your English. If you're more advanced and you want something that says advanced or C1, if you're a beginner, then you need to type in beginner. So choose something according to your level. You don't want something so hard where you're crying because it's so hard and painful, but you don't want it so easy where you're just flying through the book. So try to find something at your level and ask a friend. If you found anything, you can put it in the chat that this app was great or this book was great. I don't mind other students recommending. I personally don't have a lot of my own resources because I don't think just creating my own resources is the way to go, because there's so many other great resources out there. So if you found a book that you're going to buy and I didn't create it, I don't care. If it's going to help you, that's fine. So occasionally I do make some recommendations, but find what works for you. Time management. What have some of you said? Okay, so we're almost done. We have time management, and then we're going to go on to two more. So some of you said, I struggle to find time to study English regularly. With my job, it's hard to keep up with lessons. I want to learn faster, but my schedule is packed. Yeah, we don't have time for a lot of things in life. That's just life. What can you do? So here's the tip. Create a dedicated study schedule. Break down your learning into smaller, manageable chunks of time. So if you only have 30 minutes a week to do your English class, fine. To me, from what I've seen, I've been teaching English for 12 plus years now. Students that are consistent learn the fastest. It's consistency, it's not time. Yes, if you have more time, then you'll learn faster, but you have to be consistent. So even if you say, I only have 15 minutes a week to study English, okay, but is it every week? So that's up to you. I can't tell you you have to study English for an hour when you have, 3 kids and a baby on the way and a full-time job. So you have to find what works for you, but be consistent. Students that take a break for 4 months and then they come back, they lose a lot of that learning. So just be consistent, whether it's 5 minutes every day, 1 hour a week, however you want to divide your time, be consistent. So here's the tip. Here's the advice. Incorporate English learning into your daily routine. Listen to English podcasts while commuting, or watch English movies during your breaks. So yeah, find a podcast you like in English, maybe on the train. Pull up one of my videos. You can listen to one of my videos, whatever you want to do, but try to do something daily. You can do a little exercise, do a dialogue reading. Some of you that have been in the classes where we did dialogue reading, I provided those PDFs for you. So can you read those with a friend? Like go back even with past classes and review. So there's always something you can do in English. Read for 5 minutes. Read out loud for 5 minutes, but try to do something consistently. That's the key. It really works. The example I like to use is I had a student from Germany years ago. When I first got him, he was an A2, which is upper beginner. And I thought after the first lesson, oh boy, this is going to be a challenge. And I felt that way because I barely could understand him. This is many, many years ago. I was like, wow, oh boy, this is going to be hard. But actually, he was a great student because he showed up to class. I think we met twice a week for about 45 minutes, but every week. And we did that probably, I think, for a year, a little over a year. Do you know, at the end of that year, he was a B1. I had no trouble understanding him. I was speaking at an almost normal pace. And he was consistent. He did all the homework. I don't think he missed any classes except for when he had a vacation or something like that. He did all the exercises. He showed up all the time. Great student. And it showed. He was giving presentations in English. We were working on presentations at work in English by the end of the year. So consistency works. It wasn't a ton of time that he was putting in each week with me, but even what he was doing outside of class matters. So I always think of that as an example of time management. Okay, next one, motivation and consistency. A little connected to what we talked about. I lose motivation after a few weeks, some of you have said. I start strong but can't keep it going. Or I want to stay committed, but it's hard. Maria, have you had trouble with this motivation consistency? And what have you done? If you have a comment. If not, it's okay. Or anyone else watching the replay, let us know. Okay. Tip, set realistic goals and reward yourself for achieving them. Find a language learning buddy to keep you motivated. Sure, are you willing to learn with a friend, a sister, a sibling? And also, I like where it says reward yourself for achieving them, which means you should be tracking your progress. You should be tracking your progress and celebrate that. I had a student that went to a bank. She had trouble with some fraud on her account, and the bank manager or whoever she was talking to said, "Do you need a translator?" She spoke Spanish, native Spanish speaker. This is when I was in Texas, when I lived in Texas. And the student said, no. Even though she felt like she wanted one, she said no. So she spoke Spanish. She told me she was in the bank for about an hour to resolve the issue and spoke English the whole time. She was so proud of herself. She came back and shared that with the class, that she was able to speak for 1 hour without having to rely on translation. So that's what I mean by reward yourself. You need to recognize those achievements, and that can help motivate you. So you have to see where your progress is. So think about where you were 6 months ago, a year ago. Here's some additional advice. Remind yourself of your reasons for learning English. Yeah, why are you learning? Visualize your future goals to stay focused. Yeah, why are you learning? Okay. Maria says she hasn't had much trouble with motivation. Consistency, she likes to practice every day. Yeah, nice, Maria. Nice. Sometimes it's easier if you can do something every day because you just need a few minutes. You don't need big chunks or blocks of time. Last one. Navigating social situations. This is actually a big one. So let's see what some of you said first. You might be thinking, I feel awkward at social gatherings. I get that one a lot. People say, I can speak English at work okay, and I do okay, but as soon as I go to like a party or a gathering, a social get-together, man, it's very awkward. And what is the reason for that? I've talked about that in my classes before. What is the reason for that? Why would a student that speaks English every day at work suddenly have trouble when they're going to a social gathering? Think about it. Yeah, the reason is because they have enough English to do their job. And when they're in social settings, it requires different English. On the job, you have the same issues, you use the same vocabulary, work-related vocabulary, specific vocabulary for your job, same people, same interactions, same problems, same solutions. When you're at a party, the person you're talking to might want to talk about anything. They might want to talk about cooking, traveling, your dog, your kids, investments, the economy, current events, news, and that requires a whole new set of ideas and vocabulary. So what do you do about that? We'll address that in the tip. Okay, next student might say, how do I start a conversation? So how do I start? And then I want to be more sociable, but don't know how to engage. First of all, how do you start a conversation? Yeah, introducing yourself, telling people where you're from, what you do for work. Ask questions. That's the easiest way to take the pressure off yourself. Ask questions. Students approach it the opposite. Students think you're going to go to a party, for example, and you're going to sit there and people are going to ask you questions. It doesn't work like that. You have to ask the questions. You have to be ready to ask questions. Conversation is like tennis. I've often compared it that way. You say something, you ask something, they answer, they say something. You listen, you take what they said, ask another question, or build on that. So if somebody says, "What do you do for work?" "Oh, I work at a library." "Oh, what can you say?" "Well, how long have you worked at the library?" Then you can talk about family. "Oh, are you married?" Which is fine in the American culture. You can ask about family very quickly, even if you don't know them well. "Are you married? Do you have children? How many children? What are their ages?" "Do you have a pet?" If they ask you, "Oh, I like your dog. I saw you walking your dog the other day." "Oh, yeah. What type of dog is it? How long have you had your dog? What's the dog's name?" You have to really listen and take something they said and build on that. Wanting to be more sociable, but you don't know how to engage, it's really showing personal interest in the other person. You have to show personal interest. Here's the tip: practice common social interactions such as greeting people, introducing yourself, and making small talk. That's very difficult, but I will tell you now, in the American English culture, you better get good at small talk. It's expected. Talk about the weather, the sports game that you saw. You need to make small talk. It's expected, it's a part of the culture. And then here's the advice: attend social events and language exchange meetups. So if you have that in your country, to practice interacting with others in English, or you can just take a class online. So that's the advice. So those are some of the pain points or pressure points that students have, and some of the things that you've said, excuse me, or felt or expressed. If you have any questions, you can put it in the chat now. One second. And this will be replayed, so I'll check the chat for the replay of what issues you're having, but hopefully some of the tips and advice helps you. So in the near future, I am going to try to have those group conversation classes now, but on a different platform, so I'll let you know. So if you'd like to come for those, I'm just trying to see how to structure it. So once that's done, that could be an additional resource that you can have for practicing English. So you've heard me say this a number of times for those that have been with me for a little while. And the secret to becoming a more fluent speaker is speak more. There's no substitute for speaking. I get that all the time. Korean students, Japanese students, Chinese students, Brazilian students, most countries of the world, Turkey, where I've had students, they say the same thing. I learned grammar, I learned vocabulary, but I didn't get speaking practice when I was learning English. So here I am, and I need more speaking practice. It's true for me too. I learned French when I was in school. I studied it from seventh grade to when I was a senior. So like 6 years. I started when I was like 11 or 12. Do you think I can speak French now? No, very little. Why? I had very little speaking practice also. It's just the way classes taught language back in the day. But now they realize that you need more speaking practice. I did great on the test. I was a good student. I had good grades. But guess what? I didn't speak very well because I didn't get enough speaking practice. So that's what's important. Thank you for hanging out with me. I know this is the first time I'm doing this, so I know many of you aren't used to it, or you weren't able to make it part of your schedule. I'll try to do more of these when I see common issues or concerns or things that I can do to encourage you. I'll try to hop on and alive more often. Um, any questions for me? How about you, Maria? Are you good? And then in the replay, if you have any questions that I didn't address or you want me to go into more specifics, you can. I'm hoping to do a video soon about being shy. Many of you have this issue of being shy. It's really a chronic issue, so I need to address that a little deeper, so that I definitely will create a video about and give you practical steps. So thank you, Maria. Thank you for joining. Very nice. I know there's a couple other people here. I know they were just listening, but good to have you guys. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next live stream, the next video. And when I have those group classes created, if any of you want to hop on and come and practice your English, we'll do that too. All right. Thank you. Take care, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.